Hi everyone and welcome to Wargame. Today we're going to do a deck build video and we're going to do the UK because obviously I'm very excited that the UK is getting added to WARNO soon and I haven't built a UK deck for Wargame for many years. So I thought why not get one of those sorted out and we can play that a little bit next Wednesday when we do Wargame Wednesday. The other reason is that I'm still waiting for more games to be played in the WARNO tournament this month. It's been a little bit slow this week, and the two games that are up are very long games, and unfortunately not a lot happens. I've been warned by the players, so rather than cast those, I thought we'll do this today, build a deck, and then tomorrow, Friday, we should hopefully get some kind of dev blog, fingers crossed, and we will be having the event on the evening, which will be the SD League run event, which will include one of the UGen devs helping him cast games, and I don't know if they're going to be playing, but they're going to be casting games in the 2v2 tournament, and I'll certainly cast some of those games as well. So stay tuned for that. That'll be worth tuning into tomorrow night. So the UK, British forces, my homeland. There's a lot of good stuff, but it's not something you see very often. I mean, when we play our 10v10 tacticals, the Brits aren't pulled out that often, but really, you know, looking through the units, and I had a quick gander beforehand to remind myself, they do have some good stuff. Let's keep things simple and start with command. Now, obviously, you know what I'm going to go for? I'm going to go for the infantry command because that's what I always go for. I really like grabbing the infantry commanders here. I'm tempted to go for this really silly little vehicle purely because it is so cheap. You also have the option of this thing. The other thing I'd look for here is the speed of these vehicles on the road. That's 150. That's also 150, and it's better off-road at 90 kilometers off-road. That's pretty fast. Saxon is even faster for 10 points. So, in effect, that would be more worthwhile even than the Stalwart, to be fair. Why is the Stalwart 10 points and that is? That's weird. So, that would be the better choice, I suppose. You've got the FV432, which is your sort of standard APC thing. It's nothing too exciting, is it? I wouldn't really bother with that. I mean, it's only 5 points, but it's really slow again. You know, for 10 points or 5 points extra, I'd probably go with either this guy or, well, this guy, because A, it's got a weapon, and B, it's faster. So we'll add those guys. You obviously only get 4 of those, but it's more than we need for a 10v10 tactical because you've already got 10 commands on the field. So if you're losing that many that you need to buy more, then you've got more problems than you do a lack of commands. There are lots of command choices here though. You know, there's choppers, there's rovers, armoured vehicles, chieftains. I mean, there's plenty to choose from if you are so inclined, but I'm going to leave it there. We're going to take a fob because it's always good to have a fob in there. Then, in terms of your vehicles, you've got the Stalwart, which is pretty reasonable. You know, it's 60 kilometers off-road. It's got 800 supply. And then you've got the Chinook. I don't like bringing in the choppers. It's not a bad price for that chopper. It's only 35 points. And it's 1,500 litres, which is pretty good, to be fair. And you do get 7 of them. It's a better option than some things. I'm torn there. Definitely take that. But you see, interestingly, that works out cheaper. 15 points. So 2 of those would be 1,600 litres of supply. And they cost 15 each, so that would be 30. So you're paying an extra 5 points for 100 less supply. I suppose because of its mobility, because it's a chopper. I'm inclined to just take one set of those at the moment and use it with fobs to move it back and forth, but admittedly the Chinook may be not the worst option in terms of supply choppers for decks. Let's leave it and come back. I don't want to spend too many points here right now. Infantry, there are loads of infantry here. Some very good choices. You got Fusiliers, decent squad, regular troops, not a bad price, 10 points. 15 points gets you the Law 80, obviously much better. Look at the AP power and the accuracy on the Law 80. That is crazy good. I think that's definitely worthwhile getting. I think they're substantially better. If we pin them and have a look, compare the two. Yeah, I mean, okay, the accuracy on the L85 is slightly less, but, you know, overall its rate of fire is better. The machine gun's got better because it's also got a stabilizer, whereas the Fusiliers don't get a stabilizer. So if you take in some standard troops, then you're definitely going to want to take these guys. And then you've got a various, you know, you got the Saxon with the little machine gun on there. You've got this, which, again, just a little machine gun. But you've got the Warriors, and the Warriors are really good. I mean, they're not the fastest vehicle. So what you've got to weigh up here is what you want in terms of speed getting to the front line. I think overall what you've got to accept is the British are kind of slow. So they're not going to be the fastest getting in front line. You're not playing the South Africans here where everything is max speed all the time. The Warriors are very good. They've got the 30mm autocannons, which is great. But that said, they're going to be a lot slower to get to the front. You know, 110 kilometers on the road, 75 off. So they're slow on the road. So if you want something that's going to get there fast, you need something else. The Fusiliers, they're standard, bog standard infantry. So you either bring them in super cheap, which is definitely an option. You know, you could do that in the Stalwart, for example, there, which is pretty fast. Or you could do the Saxon, which again is going to be pretty fast. It's 100 kilometers off road. 10 points either way. I mean, you're going to go with the Saxon then, aren't you? But I'm tempted to bring those guys in the Warrior. And I'd just bring 14 hardened. Because I think for, you know, 30 points, that's a bargain. But then are we missing out on the option of cheaper infantry? The answer is yes. And in 10v10 tacticals, sometimes you want something cheaper. It's difficult. As always, this deck is a 10v10 tactical deck. So, yeah, it's a challenge. Let's add them in that for now. We're going to take hardened to make them a bit stronger. Then you got the Gurkhas. Gurkhas, again, very good squad. We're talking shock infantry. We're talking 15 man. We can't not take the Gurkhas. Let's pin them because there are the Gurkhas. And then there are Gurkhas 90 variant. So what's the difference here? Well, the 90's getting the Mini-Me, which is a ridiculously good gun. And obviously better than the Bren. They get the Sterling in both cases, which is fine. And why wouldn't you take the upgraded ones? I mean, there is absolutely no reason not to take the Gurkhas 90. I mean, you even get the same amount of them. We're not going to take them in a Puma, obviously. That would be silly. We take them either in a Stalwart, or we take them in the Saxon. We're going to take them in the Saxon. I mean, we're running out of Saxons, but we're going to take them in the Saxon. And 10 veteran is pretty good for a 10v10 tactical. I don't think we'll go through all them. Great. Now we've got the lab blowpipes and we've got the javelins. Let's pin that. Let's have a look at the javelin. So the javelin is obviously better. It's an anti-air javelin, not an anti-ground javelin. There are two types, before anyone gets confused. Accuracy is pretty reasonable. And, you know, range is very good against helicopters in the grand scheme of things. You do get some very nice anti-air options in the support tab, so yes and no to these. I mean, the nice thing about them is they're pretty cheap at 15 points. So I'd be tempted to take some, but we've only got 3 more slots here. So on the basis that we don't have a huge amount of space for infantry, I'm going to move on and not take those. What I am going to do is take a Milan. Because in terms of long-range anti-tank infantry, it's the Milan 2 or nothing. So we're going to take the Milan 2. We're going to take it just in the Stalwart because I don't want to use the Saxon. And most of the time, these guys aren't going to need a vehicle with them anyway. So we'll keep it cheap and cheerful. I'd even be tempted to do this one. But my concern is one of the few things that I want to get the front line fast are probably the Milan 2s because I want them to be in buildings at the front. So those need to be in something that can do 150 on the road, which is the Stalwart. Okay? Now, paratroopers, again, fantastic squad. You get the paratroopers 90. They're 5 points more. They have better weapons in the grand scheme of things. Obviously, shock troops. I'd be very tempted to take them, but then we'd be missing out on Royal Marines and SAS. So, you know, there's a balancing act here. price-wise, they're not bad at 25 points, but then we've got the Royal Marines and the Royal Marines 90. Now, the Royal Marines get the Bren, the L1A1, but then the Royal Marines 90 get the L85 and the Mini-Me, and we do like the Mini-Me. It is very, very, very good. Very high accuracy, etc., etc. So, Royal Marines, I kind of have to put them in because of the Royal Marines, really, don't I? I'd even be tempted to take them in choppers, but I'm trying to think when I would actually utilise that in 10v10 games generally. Most of the time, I don't fly operations like that. I do think that due to the amount of Lynxes and the fact you get the Royal Marines and the SAS, etc., these guys would probably make a good airborne squad. So, due to our limitations in what we can take, I kind of want to take the Royal Marines, and then it's going to end up being quite an expensive deck. Even the Fusiliers being quite expensive there. Got Saxons again, and we've got Stormers. Stormers have a bit of armor. They have a machine gun. Could just bring them in the Stalwart and be done with it. Territorials, we're not going to bother in this because they're only militia, sadly. SAS have the Stingers, which is the other thing. So, I suppose I should have mentioned that when I was talking about the Javelin. Obviously, you do have these guys with the Stinger, so you've kind of got anti-air. And the SAS are obviously a very good elite trained squad, as are the Royal Marines. So, we're going to take these guys. I mean, I'd even be tempted to take them in a chopper, but I can't sell the chopper like I can in Warno, so it's a bit of a wasted thing, isn't it, really? I mean, that one comes with rockets at least, so it could be used as... And that's a Puma with a... I really don't know. I think I'm going to stick with ground forces, and if I built another deck with these guys, I think then I would think about maybe building an airborne deck and bringing in lots of choppers. So let's take the SAS in the Stalwart, and we'll take 7 Elite, because, again, we're probably not going to bring that many in a 10v10 game most of the time. And then Royal Marines as well, and we're going to forgo the Paratroopers. I'm sorry, Paratroopers. You are fantastic. Let's just compare them, actually. I'm just really... The big difference is obviously they're elite. They're slightly faster because they're elite as well. The weapons are identical, except the Royal Marines are better with the weapons, so their accuracy is higher because they're better trained, and the stabilizer works out better. No difference on the low 80, but fire rate on their L85 is better as well. It's got to be the Royal Marines, hasn't it? We'll bring them in as veteran though, so we have a few more. That's what we'll do. Okay, there we go. We've got lots of fun units. What do the Gurkhas come in with? Not a huge choice, so we're sticking with that. I was just going to say I'd bring in some more warriors if that was an option there, but it's not. And these guys don't get warriors either, so... I mean, it's literally the Fusiliers that get the warriors, which is a bit of a disappointment, but... So be it. Let's move on to support. Let's forgo artillery for a moment, and let's look at the anti-air. So you've got the Falcon, which is your cannon base. You've got the Marksman, which is pretty nice. I mean, look at the ranges on that. It's radar, though. That one's not, and it's got a decent range against helicopters, but its accuracy is poor. This has good accuracy, a stabilizer, but it's radar. And this is also radar, but equally, you know, the difference here for 10 points is the armor. It's just on a different chassis. So that's on a Chieftain. That's on a Challenger. I mean, very, very good units. I mean, I'd be going with the Chieftain because the range and everything else is the same. It's just a price difference. And either way, you're going to have to babysit them. I mean, I don't even think you need to bring in more than trained there. I'm going to move on, though, because there are other options, but bearing in mind that that is a good choice, but they're susceptible to seed. Down here we got the Stormer. I am definitely taking the Stormer. The Stormer has a Star Streak. The Star Streak is a fantastic weapon, and it is technically a prototype, but it is a fantastic weapon. We're going to take... I'm tempted... It's not radar, and is very long range against helicopters. I think we can afford to just take trained because the accuracy is 65%. So I'm happy with that. Then we get the rapier, which is a mixed bag. So the standard rapier is unguided and has 2,800 against choppers and not so great range against planes. We switch then to one that has much better range against planes, but not so good against choppers, and is radar. It's a bit hit and miss, this one. I mean, I think you need it because you want something that's longer range against aircraft. And the rapier is the only choice. And it's pretty reasonably priced at 55 points, let's be honest here. But it's our longest range AA against planes. So we're going to stick that in. We're going to take hardened ones. Because if they all get popped, I haven't been babysitting them enough, and that's on me. Now, there's a couple of slots here which are only 2 points. I'd be tempted to fill them with something. You could go heavy AA. And take, you know, the Chieftain. Or slide back slightly and get the Falcon. Or you go more in terms of artillery here. Let's have a look at the artillery choices. So, you've got the FV-432, which is your mortar carrier. Pretty standard. We're probably going to end up taking that for the 81mm mortars. Then you've got the Abbott. And that's pretty cheap, but it's pretty short range. 5 HE, 5 rounds a minute. You got the 109, pretty standard stuff. And you got the AS90, which is pretty nice, 4 rounds a minute, longer range, pretty decent dispersion, better than the other two, and a HE power of 7. So if you're going to bring a big artillery piece, that's probably your choice for decent dispersion and stuff. Obviously, you have the M110 and the M110-2, obviously very slow firing. Again, dispersion's pretty tight, the same as the AS90. And then obviously you get the choice of the M270 MLRS. Decent dispersion, AP power's not great. 12 missiles. It's the MLRS. You know what it is. We're going to take the mortars because we will want some mortar to protect tanks and things. I'm going to take them as hardened. And then do we be ballsy and take artillery that I hardly ever call out? I really, really rarely call out the artillery. I'm much more likely to call out some more anti-air or something. I mean, these will also be good against infantry on the ground, but ground range is pretty poor, isn't it? 1,000 meters. I wonder why it's so short on the ground. Do you think they'd fire a lot further than that? I think that's a game balance issue. Okay, let's not. Let's move on and see if we spend all our points elsewhere. That was really difficult there, whether I take anything, actually. Right, tanks. Challenger 2. Well, we only get one veteran, so we're going to have to take 2 trained, because I would inevitably get one blown up. Amazing tank. 23 front armor. Fantastic gun. 22 AP power. You know, it's a super heavy. It's pretty slow. But it doesn't have to be fast. It just has to shoot stuff. We like the Challenger 2. I don't think that'll be in WARNO. They're being a bit more well-behaved and not having prototypes. Then we've got the Challenger 1 Mark III, which is a bit cheaper. Obviously 20 front armor. Weapon, very similar, just not quite as good. Pretty decent, though. You got the Challenger 1 Mark II. And if we just pin those two just for comparison, because you got a bit of a jump in price there, 170 down to 115. So the 145 is kind of in the middle, but how much am I going to spend on big tanks in the game is up for debate. I kind of want to skip over the 145 variant and go straight to the other two. So the other two choices are the 115 or the 105. Difference here, obviously, it's just the main cannon and the damage output. 10 points for an extra 2 damage and slightly better accuracy and stabilizer. I mean, realistically, I'd rather spend the extra 10 points here. So I'm going to add the Challenger 1 Mark II. Other people might feel differently, but that would be my choice. I'm going to take 5 hardened. That is more than enough. I doubt we'll ever call in that many in a 10v10 tactical. Then we talk, you know, you've got the Scorpion light tank, teeny tiny tank, really unexciting. Purely going to be for infantry support, but it's a bit faster than everything else. Then we got the Chieftains. I mean, the Chieftains are older, obviously, but they're not bad tanks. You know, you get some cheap, cheerful stuff, 13 AP, 14, 16, all the way up to 19 now, which is obviously on par with that in terms of its penetration. Weapons not as accurate, front armor not as good, but if we pin it, we can have a compare of the two. Obviously, range is pretty good. It's a British tank, so it's all got 120mm, you know, cannon on it. 7 rounds a minute. I think, you know, other than the front armor being bad, for 80 points, I think that's pretty good. The only question is, do you want something a lot cheaper in there for, you know, fire support, or do you bring something elsewhere? And the answer is, I'm going to bring something elsewhere. There are vehicles in this deck, which includes an anti-infantry tank. So, I'm going to take the Chieftain Mark II because it's got decent capabilities. I'm still going to take Hardened 8 because I think that's more than enough. I'm going to unpin it. I'm not going to take any more tanks from here. I'd be tempted for getting this just for its spam ability. I can have 29 of those. But I don't really spam that much in Wargame. So let's move on to Recon. Again, great choices here. You get so many vehicle choices. Most of them I wouldn't bother with, to be honest, because the optics aren't great. What I do like here is you do get, obviously, the Scorpion with this little tank gun. And you do also get the Raden, which is a pretty decent 30mm autocannon. Ferret, Rover Pinky. The Rover Pinky has exceptional optics. That's very tempting for something so small. Problem is, the stealth's only medium, which is a bit of a shame. The Gazelles, you do get the very cheap 65-point Gazelle, which has exceptional recon if you are going to keep it alive. Obviously, what I'm going to go for immediately are the infantry, because that's what I always do. We are low on little trucks. This one has good speed on the road, very bad speed across ground. Stalwart is better. We've only got one of those left. Saxons, we've got none left. We can use the Spartans here. And we can use Pumas. I mean, I'm going to bring them in this. There's only one available, but it's going to keep them very cheap. And I'm going to bring 7 Hardened. I'm then going to bring the SBS because they're the SBS. And why wouldn't we? You know, elite, very good. They're going to put up a hell of a fight if they need to. You don't want to come up against these guys in a forest or anything. You will get minced. So we're going to take them. We're going to take them probably... I mean, do you take them in a chopper? It's not a bad option because they're probably a good one for getting behind enemy lines. The problem is short-range anti-tank. I'd be tempted to bring them in a chopper. I haven't done that for a long time, try to get choppers around the enemy's base. I've been concentrating more on front-line stuff. Let's bring them in the Stalwart. Let's do that. And we'll bring in the veterans. They don't need to be elite. They're already very good. Now that's 7 and 5, so I've not got a lot of recon there. I'm tempted to bring in 5 of these rovers as well, since they've got exceptional recon. And they're the only option except the chopper, and I just feel like they'll survive longer, so I'm going to stick that in as well. I'm still a little bit worried that's not enough recon, so we might come back. Okay, vehicles. We're definitely taking some stuff here. The British have some decent choices here. Centurion. It's a Centurion tank with a bloody big cannon on it. Its anti-infantry HE power is 8. It's an IVRE. We're taking that. Definitely. We can take 10 Hardened. I mean, it's going to improve the accuracy, but it's already pretty accurate. It's short range, but this is infantry support. You move it up with your troops in the forest. You move it up with your troops at the edge of a forest. And you melt enemy infantry. You then have the option of the Striker, which obviously has the lovely swing fire missile. Decent range. Accuracy isn't spectacular. Definitely be taking those Hardened, but it's a nice option. You get the Raden, which is, you know, it's the standard FV432 with the Raden cannon on top. It's 15 points, quite spammable. I'm kind of tempted to take that, I've got to be honest, because 30mm auto cannons, generally very good. You get the Saladin, which just has a little cannon on it. Look at the tiny thing. Just for the memes. And then you get the Wombat and the Rover Milan. It's not really exciting. I'm genuinely tempted to take the Striker and the Raden. I'm going to stick them both in. I'm going to take that hardened because the striker's missile range isn't great. I'm relying on vehicles more than I am infantry for long-range anti-tank. I am taking them a lance just because I need something to put in buildings, but I'd be quite happy being someone who is going to play in a forest tree line and just using vehicles as anti-tank. Long-range anti-tank. Because don't forget, we've got that, which is 2,600 meters. If we go back to support, we've also got the Stormer, which has the same range and can attack ground. Its AP power is only 12, though. Whereas the Swing Fire is 22. So, you know, that's going to kill tanks. Anyhow, I was going to stick the Raden in as well. I really don't think... I mean... Do you take trained or hardened? Just take hardened. I mean, even if you spam them to support your infantry, which wouldn't be a bad idea, at 15 points apiece, even in a tactical game, that's pretty reasonable. Helicopters, the British didn't really run with many exciting helicopters at this time. I mean, I know we run stuff these days, but they never really added it. Whether that was for balance or not, I don't know. But it's not like they added prototype with the Apache and stuff for the British. I don't know why. We do use it. So the TOW 2. So we've got the Lynx 3, which has anti-air and anti-ground Hellfires. Obviously very nice. Not fire and forget, sadly. You got the TOW 2 launcher. Great. Pretty standard. And you've got the standard TOW. And here you've got one with a 20mm cannon. 20mm cannons have their area in the game, but very rare I call them in. It's maybe for sniping CVs that are left at the back of the map when someone's trying to hide them. You know, you can rush up and penetrate them and take them out while they're running them away from the base to extend the game. I kind of want to fill the slot here, and I'm tempted to take the Lynx 3. The reason for that is I know it's expensive, but I like the fact it's got a Stinger on as well. And obviously the Hellfire is pretty good. I'm going to stick that in. I think we can just take 4 trained. It's going to be rare I call them in, but it's just to fill that single slot. Okay, so we're on to air, and we've only used 36 of 60 points, so we are going to spend some stuff elsewhere. But let's have a look through here. So, we've got the Typhoon. Obviously, with its Fire and Forget AMRAAMs, you only get 2 rookies or 1 elite. It is an expensive jet, isn't it, really? It is a very expensive jet. You get the Harriers with the bombs. Harriers, paveway bombs. Ooh. 4 paveway bombs, people. I didn't realise they got paveways. That's quite nice. I'm taking that because I want the 4 paveway bombs. Jaguar. At least you've got some anti-ground there. That's not too bad, is it? Shame it's not fire and forget. Very good AP power. Not the best accuracy, though. That's a shame. The Harriers don't have... I mean, you've got the paveway, I suppose. You've got the Alarm Seed. That's not a bad seed jet, is it? That's not a bad seed at all. That's 70-point anti-chopper jet. Tornado GR1 with clusters. It's only got 4 cluster bombs. Tornado with a Sky Flash. That's nice and cheap, isn't it? That's not fire and forget, though. Ooh. Tornado F3 135 has 8,400 meter range. Look at the accuracy on it as well. That's the Sky Flash Super Temp. Oh, we're definitely taking that. 2 veterans. So, I quite like that. That's quite a cheap but effective anti-air. Stealth's poor, but I just like the fact it's got really long-range missiles. I kind of want to take that for seed. We're going to take... They get 2 cluster bombs. It's the missiles there. Standard bombs, rockets. Rockets aren't a bad thing to have. You know, they're quite cheap. 4 bombs instead of 2 bombs. And the paveway we've already got. We might take the Eurofighter as well. I feel like I'm going anti-air heavy here, but I feel like the bomber options aren't spectacular other than the paveways. I mean, 4 HE bombs, they're big bombs, admittedly. 15 HE power. But they're not spectacular. We've got loads of ground anti-tank and the chopper, so I'm not inclined to take the Jaguar, to be honest. I think the paveway will do a good enough job against most vehicles, at least in stunning and damaging them, even if it doesn't kill them. I mean, you could take them elite, which will increase their accuracy substantially. But I don't know. We've got plenty of anti-air. We've got seed. We've got the paveways. I'm sort of toying between these two. Those 4 bombs seem nice. I want to take that and try the 4 bombs as trained. We'll try it. If I don't like it, we'll switch out to the anti-tank. Maybe I'll regret it, because that anti-tank is pretty cheap, and if you can bring in 2 elites for that price, that might make it really good, especially for the speeds that it comes in at. But we'll try the bomber. Although it's only 10 HE power for the paveways. Let's try it and we'll see. Okay, so we've got points to play with, so let's retrace our steps. Straight away, fine. Let's add the Chinooks. They can rearm stuff at the back. They can rearm the other supply. Let's give it a go. They're pretty cheap, and they're going to be faster than bringing in the stalwarts. Yeah, I'll try it. I'll try it. I'm going to regret it. I can't take any more infantry, which is incredibly disappointing. Support, we can take more support. So do we take some artillery? Or do we stick with anti-air? We've got so much anti-air. We've got anti-air, anti-ground and anti-air, anti-air. It's just bringing more radar stuff, isn't it? That's what's bothering me about it. You could bring the tracked rapier, which is... Let's do that. Let's bring the tracked rapier, which doesn't have radar. It's good against helicopters. And, you know, it's just something extra to dot around that can't be targeted by seed. And we'll forego artillery. I usually rely on other team members for artillery, rightly or wrongly. If you're not going full artillery with a support deck, you tend to struggle in 10v10s anyway, dealing with the amount you need to combat enemy artillery. Right, we still got points, so let's take some tanks. Let's take... I'm tempted to just take something really cheap and cheerful, like the Chieftains. I don't really want to take the Scorpion light tank. It's only got heat rounds, so it doesn't really do it for me. Let's take one of these cheap tanks. Armor's the same, slightly more back armor. It's the accuracy advantage I'm liking there. So let's take hardened of those. And then we've got a few points left. I mean, I think we take more Recon, because that was my other concern of being missing something. So let's take... I think just cheap stuff. Let's take some more of these guys, and we'll take them in a... Let's take them in a Puma. Or do we take the SBS on the basis they have better anti-tank to get around enemy lines? Let's do that. Screw it. Let's take them in the Puma. And we'll just take, again, it's just the cheap option for the helicopter. We can always try and play around behind enemy lines. And I got a point left, but I'm not going to worry about it. I'm happy with where I've spent points here. Let's recap quickly. A bit of higgledy-piggledy this one, I feel. So, HQ section, Infantry Command, Fob, Stalwart, and the Chinooks will give them a go. Maybe I'll regret it. Infantry, Fusiliers, Gurkhas, both 90 variants. Milan 2, because I do really want something that I can sit in buildings that's long-range anti-tank, and it is my only option. SAS, obviously elite troops, and then the Royal Marines as well. Royal Marines 90 specifically for their weapon upgrades. Support, we're taking the Stormer HMV with its Starstreak, we're taking the Tracked Rapier, we're taking the Mortars, and we're taking the other Tracked Rapier. Got a lot of anti-air here. We got the Challenger 2, we've got the Challenger 1 Mark II. I'm foregoing the Challenger 1 Mark III because I feel like I want something that's a substantial jump down at that point. Because if I lose both my Challenger 2s, I'm not going to want to bring in more expensive tanks. Sorry, I should also say I brought in Chieftain Mark II and Chieftain Mark V as sort of little fill-in points. Is that a Chieftain 11, sorry, rather than a Chieftain Mark II? Apologies. Recon, we've gone for the Green Jackets, the SBS, the Rover Pinky, because it has exceptional optics, and then the SBS in a Puma to try and get around behind enemy lines. Vehicles, I've gone for the Centurion AVRE for infantry support. I've gone for the Striker for anti-tank support. That'll be good in forests and things at the front line. And also the Raden for spammable infantry support. Loving autocannons. The only shame is they're not as fast across the ground, obviously, as South Africans. So these aren't going to be for rushing at the enemy, you know, to do runs on their bases and stuff. This is just going to be for pushing with infantry. Helicopters, we've gone for the Lynx 3 just for its armament more than anything else. I may rarely call it in. We've gone for the Harrier with paveways. We've gone for the Tornado F3 with its long range anti-air missiles. We've gone for the Sea Harrier for Seed. We've gone for the Eurofighter Typhoon for its AMRAAM missiles, which are fire and forget. And we've gone for the Harrier with its 500 kilogram bombs. I'd also be tempted by the Jaguar anti-tank option. However, we do have a lot of ground anti-tank. So I'm trying to base this on, I want to be able to call in the Harrier to bomb stuff as paveways, and I want to be able to bring in anti-air jets for air superiority. And the rest, well, it is what it is. And there's not a lot of good bombers in here for some reason. But that's the deck. It's a weird deck. Let's hit back and we can see it in all its glory. Yeah, I don't know how this one will play out. I'm taking stuff that either I like the look of, or being British, I have to take them. Like the SAS and the Royal Marines, I can't not. Same with the SBS, I have to take them, guys. But yeah, I will try it. I'm curious. I'm also curious if you could do an airborne deck with these guys, bringing in lots of SAS and stuff in choppers. So maybe that's something I'll have a look at as well. But there is the video. As I say, please do stay tuned tomorrow, Friday, for the event that SD League will be running, where we will be having one of the UGen devs along to help cast some games, answer some questions that have been pre-proposed, and there'll also be the 2v2 tournament for fun. So please do come along for that. I'll be casting some games, and obviously the main proceedings will be on the SD League Twitch channel. Other than that, guys, have a fantastic week, have a great weekend, and I'll see you all soon for some more WARNO and Wargame.